Holy cannoli, it's BlackJupiter. I am losing my mind. Also, hi, I'm Agent Random. So, that Nintendo Direct, huh? I just about dang near had a heart attack. Fire Emblem, Xenoblade, Ocarina of Time, Deltarune, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then when I thought it couldn't get any more wild, Square Enix pulled up, shot me in the face, and sent me straight to Quadratum. We are so back. That's right, everyone, it's Kingdom Hearts 4. But what can we glean from this new trailer exactly? And are there any connections to Square's other Shibuya-based game? You know the one. Dissidia Duelim. I should also note that I have done 2 other Kingdom Hearts 4 analyses so far, and those may be worth refreshing your memory on, as I won't be going back over info covered in those videos. So if you have no idea why the game got such a graphics upgrade from 3, why everyone's talking about afterlives, or why I'm obsessed with building logos, maybe check that out. The trailer begins with a shot of a new black hooded figure. Unlike the Master of Masters or Luxu from the first trailer, her form is distinctly more feminine, and her posture doesn't match either of those two. The folded hands especially seem reminiscent of the posture of Ava, the leader of the Vulpes house from Union Cross. You know, the mobile game gaining more and more importance with each passing piece of news. The voiceover here also matches up with Yume Miyamoto, Alpha's Japanese voice actress. The voiceover reiterates what we know about Quadratum from the first trailer, which is that it was a world without light or darkness. She also clarifies that these are distinctly the Kingdom Hearts versions of the 2 concepts, as in light and darkness, the supernatural forces that empower all major players in this franchise, not the pure concept of like light switches and stuff, which, you know, I'm sure we could assume, but helpful to have confirmation. Quadratum wasn't living without an electrical grid until Sora pulled up. She also denotes that, quote, our arrival to Quadratum brought light and darkness with it, which brings into question exactly how that happened. Presumably, Ava arrived here just after the end of Kingdom Hearts 3 at the same time that all the other foretellers spawned into the present. This lines up with Sora's arrival, so at least Ava and Sora here definitely brought light and darkness with them. This could also maybe include Xigbar and the Master. But why just them? As is extremely clear, they are not the only 2 from, quote, reality to make their way here to unreality, and certainly not the ones you would think got here first. Surely some of the other familiar faces we got here in Quadratum got here much before Sora and Ava did? Would their earlier arrival not have caused this same effect? If not, why not? More on that in a bit. It is also worth noting that it's not impossible that the presence of people from reality in unreality has caused a dislike towards the people from reality. Maybe this is why Yuzora had that Keyblade skull thing on his jacket. I mean, that's a little xenophobic, I guess, but I won't lie, the imagery is pretty metal. Yuzora did try to take Sora out on sight, and he is, in fact, a commander, so yeah, maybe not that far out. Speaking of Sora, there he is. For the first few frames, we can see a lot of interesting things in the background. Firstly, the traffic cones are dissolving into these yellow triangles like they're Spider-Verse style glitching. And wow, Darkseid has left a path of destruction behind him, so Sora's off to save the day. This is almost surely the game's tutorial fight against Darkseid. We can be extra sure that this is a tutorial fight since Sora distinctly does not have all of the options on his command menu during this fight, but does in the trailer's other fights, and also he has less HP here. Also, if you see me swapping between footage that has the command menu and footage that doesn't, that is because the Nintendo Direct gameplay footage is different. Not just containing the command menu, but straight up being different recordings of the same fights. And there aren't even just 2 versions of this trailer, actually there's 3. Square Enix's no HUD upload, Nintendo's English HUD upload, and Nintendo's Japanese HUD upload. I'll be swapping through each of these as relevant. Sora shows off his keychain whip thing that he has going on, and we get a better look at his watch from the screenshots. We can see that it does not appear to be that Libra smartwatch that I thought earlier. It just looks like a regular old watch. Sora is thrown into a building, and I've seen people say that these 2 look like they could be Yoko Shimomura and Kaoru Wada. I'm not super sure that I fully see the resemblance, but I'll mention it here just in case. It would be neat if Square kept the tradition of putting staff members in their games. While Sora is Soraing through the skies, as we see a very distinct advertisement for umbrellas. One of the reasons that this is so distinct is that it is one of the only ads that we've seen so far to not already exist when going out of bounds in Quadratum and Kingdom Hearts 3. Young Xehanort holding an umbrella is a piece of imagery that Nomura has drawn more times than you'd think recently, and it gets shown later in this trailer, so it's not impossible that umbrellas are going to somehow be relevant in this game. I think being able to collect them would be fun. We get a new shot of my girl Strelitzia. She's having a conversation with someone, but it's not at all clear who. They could be wearing a black coat, maybe, but again, no way to know for sure. Afterward, we get a shot of Sigurd. He was a character that appeared in like literally the final scene of Union Cross and would have had a big role in Missing Link if Square wasn't sometimes run by clowns. This shot of Sigurd is likely from Darkseid's attack, as we can see Darkseid's dark tendrils running up the building he's in. Then we get a shot of Kendo Radade. Just kidding, this is Volley, one of the upperclassmen from the Keyblade School in Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. And notably, he totally gets murdered in a school shooting. For those of you out of the loop, this is a real plot point in a real Kingdom Hearts game. And since Volley's here, I would keep an eye out for any other dead Dark Road characters that might weasel their way into this game. Specifically the ones murdered at the school. A handful were killed by Maleficent, but their hearts have been confirmed to be sent to the final world, so I don't think their inclusion here is as likely. The presence of Volley and Sigurd both raise some questions. We never got Sigurd's game exactly, so we don't know if he ever generated a death message in the chat, but we do know that he was born at least several hundred years ago. And bro looks great for his age. The point that I'm trying to make here is that they would have had to have arrived in Quadratum recently, or they'd be like literally any older than they were several centuries ago. I smelled time travel or rather such nonsense, which would be in line with how Ava and Strelitzia are presumably here. And it checks out with the presence of light and darkness also seeming to be recent. Otherwise, the game would also have to explain why light and darkness didn't get introduced to Quadratum back when Volley and Sigurd died. And think about it, if Volley arrived in Quadratum way back when he died, he'd be looking as old as Xehanort right now. We are going to ignore that for right now. Volley is also notably sporting a new outfit, seemingly stolen from the wardrobe of Yozora. Maybe he's also part of Yozora's troop? I mean, if Yozora's troop is really hunting down people from reality, then surely Volley would also be on their hit list, but I don't know, maybe the face mask threw him off. I don't know. He also has a new keyblade. The keychain does have a square-like shape with 4 points, so maybe it's like a quadratum keyblade. Brief look at Luxord, who does look to have been taking fashion cues from Neo the World Ends With You's Has. I see those phoenixes. Luxord is the composer of Quadratum, confirmed. Reminder that Luxord is likely from Quadratum natively, and his presence here may not be tied to the introduction of light and darkness like Sora's presence here is. That does raise the possibility that Luxord's presence in reality could have caused some elements from unreality to be introduced into its ecosystem, like maybe how Sora brought light and darkness with him, Luxord brought debt and taxes, I don't know. But that is purely logical conjecture, which is a dangerous way of thinking in this franchise. We get a shot of another black hooded figure. No obvious tells for who this is, but I'll take a stab and say Master of Masters. I've seen people say Zigbar because of the shoulders. I say Master of Masters because of the posture. I am legally obligated to tell you that we see some black feathers in the foreground here, which maybe appeared in Kingdom Hearts Missing Link. They were used by the characters Hugin and Moonin to hypnotize guards in Skalad Kylum. Hugin and Moonin are likely people who worked for Master Odin from Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. That is partially conjecture and partially maybe not canon, because this game didn't come out. Like, as far as I can tell, their names being Hugin and Moonin is like data mined information and not actually stated in the amount of the game that people got to play. Again, I just legally gotta bring it up in case it ends up mattering. Why are the hypno feathers here with the master? I don't know, maybe that's why the foretellers are so dumb. I mean, either that or these feathers are
frickin' Sephiroth. Not quite so likely, since the world that this shot is in is likely Endor, or rather just the foresty place from the first trailer that sure looks like Endor. It is our only shot in the trailer that does not look like it is in Shibuya, unless we're like in Yoyogi Park, but I don't think we are. Quick shot of Donald and Goofy to remind us all that this is in fact a Disney game. It's from the same cutscene as the one scene from the first trailer with Hades, and we did get official confirmation that this is Hades from his voice actor. Otherwise, not anything else to say here that I didn't say in the first video on this game. Well, except for the fact that the tweet was retweeted by Quentin Flynn, voice of Axel. Does a retweet necessarily mean anything? No, but really, this is the first sign of life in this game for Axel, or really any of the major original characters that were on Sora's side through the Xehanort saga, so worth a mention. Then we see Sora and Miyashita Park with young Xehanort. So much for Xehanort not showing up again after KH3, huh, Nomura? As I mentioned before, this scene has been depicted in 2 different Nomura sketches that we were provided to tide us over while waiting for literally even a drop of Kingdom Hearts 4 news. Young Xehanort's presence here in Quadratum is confusing, to say the least. Unlike nearly everyone else here, he's not really dead. Or is he? Because hold the dang phone, when he dies in Kingdom Hearts 3, he turns back into his young self before zipping off to Disney heaven. And it's very likely that this is specifically that version of young Xehanort rather than this loser, I said affectionately. Because rather than the usual young Xehanort, this guy has gray eyes. I mean, he probably does. He has gray eyes in the art. We can't really see in the trailer, but like, come on. I mean, it's either post-mortem old man Xehanort, or like a time-traveling Dark Road era young Xehanort, who is somehow time-traveling before he actually learned to time travel. My money's going on old man Xehanort that just de-aged himself, because that was literally the last thing we saw him do in Kingdom Hearts 3. And if dead people are allowed to pick and choose their forms to some extent, it makes it a little more plausible that Sigrid and Vali have been forever 21ing it out for the past millennia. But also remember, if that were the case, we would need an explanation as to why their presence in Unreality didn't introduce light and darkness like Sora's did. I am still standing by that they got here at pretty much the same time that everyone else did. Also, if young Xehanort slash just regular Xehanort is going to be buddy-buddy with Sora, let's all remember, he is the one guy in this franchise who knows the Master of Masters' name, and you better believe that's gonna come up. Now it's gameplay time! We get a better look at the HUD, which we can see is fully functional. We also get a mini-map that is contained within a square. Cute. It's at this point that I also noticed that Sora's portrait has been updated for the 3rd time so far. The main point of this footage is to show off the build command and how it changes from Keyblade to Keyblade. But for that purpose, we get our first look at a new Keyblade, this water and lava themed one. I think everyone's minds jump to Moana, and while I do think Moana is an extremely likely world for this game, I'm not exactly sure this is the Moana Keyblade. Like, Moana does have a lot of water and lava imagery, but there's a lot of iconography from Moana much more iconic to the movie than just generic water and lava. I think it's much more likely that this is just like a general elemental themed Keyblade. No, not an elemental themed Keyblade. Although it isn't that far off from fitting that movie either. Whatever. Build! It seems to be a mechanic that allows for various unique and themed combos when using specific Keyblades. Another step in KH3's direction of making each Keyblade more equally viable with their own unique properties. We can see that much like magic, the build menu can be triggered from the command menu proper, or it can be opened via a shortcut menu triggered with the L2 or ZL buttons. It even gets a unique look for each Keyblade. The way this mechanic seems to work is that by using build attacks, Sora can in the moment upgrade the commands in his build menu. We can see here that Lava Slash turns into Igneous Impact. As stated before, build commands are Keyblade specific. Hot and Cold here gives commands like Lava Slash and Flowing Edge, while the Kingdom Key gives chain related commands like Chain Raid and Star Ring. This does raise the question of if this keychain whip / grappling hook thing that he's been having going on is a kingdom key thing or just something that Sora can do normally for like movement and such. Like, we know that he probably can do this during the dark side fight, but we also know that he probably only has the kingdom key during that fight. To be seen. I also want to note that the Igneous Impact command shows a bunch of question marks for the first few frames of its existence. I'm curious if this is like the game loading up what command you've built, or if like build commands that you haven't used yet display as question marks. No idea here. It's only here for a couple frames and it very quickly stops being question marks and turns into Igneous Impact for no discernible reason. Each successfully landed build command seems to increase Sora's focus gauge over here and cost from the build gauge right up here over the command menu. At the moment, we do not know how the player would go about filling the build gauge. Using a higher tier build command also seems to demote that command back to its base form. So after using Igneous Impact, it turns back into Lava Slash. But more importantly, these commands create reaction commands, which are now a green square instead of a triangle. Truly, we're in a whole new world.
Hey, I wonder what that crystal right there is about.
Builds can create reaction commands in one of two ways. Option 1, the trigger for a reaction command will naturally appear while Sora is using a build command. Or 2, Sora gets physically near an object that he spawned into the environment with a build command. Case in point, this big rock. By going frame by frame, we can see that Sora gets a normal reaction command for his combo and see it get overridden by the rock's reaction command called Volcanic Crush, which allows him to slide up off the rock before slamming down onto the enemies. So essentially what Build mainly does is allow the player to generate their own reaction commands live on the battlefield. Oh, it's so peak. We're shown build-based reaction commands for both Keyblades, with Kingdom Key having Sora do his final smash. This time it's called Gate of Light and it's shaped like a heart binder. Maybe a sign that the Kingdom Key represents Sora's connections to his friends back in reality? Oh, also Sora uses the Kingdom Key build stuff to Keyblade Surf. I headcanon that he picked this trick up while in the Keyblade Graveyard in Kingdom Hearts 3. There's also like a more normie rail grind called Flanking Shift. During this fight, and actually early in the trailer too, but more noticeable in this fight, we can see that Sora is wearing an earpiece. Actually, upon looking more closely at last year's screenshots, it does also seem to be there too. My bad for missing that, y'all. This was something worn by the Missing Link protagonist, so I imagine that this was given to him by Sigurd, since Sigurd was running the whole agent-like operation with the whole HQ and stuff. And just saying, Sigurd, buddy, if you're looking for any new agents to hire, you know where to find me. We can also see in these fights that NPCs are present during the battles, which they really couldn't be in any other game. NPCs were always relegated to like safe zones or just rooms that enemies could not spawn in. I wonder if they can be hurt or interacted with in any way. We do see later in the trailer that the tutorial fight does make a point of protecting the bystanders, so maybe that's a mechanic in this game. And by the way, I am so proud of Sora for getting over his racism. He started out hating nobodies and now he's defending them. We do also see a fun detail in that these people are videoing Sora on their smartphones. Sort of reminds me of Raynatus and how that if like people started texting about you on their phone, that's how you knew the magic police were gonna come after you soon. Wow, what a coincidence. We do also see that Sora now has a visual indicator around him when an enemy is about to strike from off screen. Neat stuff, not much more to say there other than this being a first for the series. And just so that I mention it, the enemies do drop MP orbs and money. No HP orbs spotted though. Now the real question is, did this city always take money as a currency, or is Sora gonna just pull up to the ATM and not know what the heck yen is? Are we gonna find out that the denizens of reality introduce light, darkness, and money? How is the introduction of money going to affect the value of the yen? So many questions. While on the subject of the enemies, there's not much new to say on these guys. No new faces than what we saw 13 months ago. Oh my gosh. But we do know that these big handy boys turn red and aggressive when sustaining enough damage, once again similar to large bodies. Also, the shadow type enemy here triggers an actual honest-to-god reaction command called Turn Shift. Wow. As for the environment, the second of the two battles takes place during a rainy night, extremely reminiscent of the KH3 secret ending. Does this mean we get day-night cycles in this game? I heavily doubt. Square has fooled me with these tricks too many times before. Most likely certain segments of the story in Quadratum some just so happen to take place at night, and maybe if you're lucky you can switch the time of day by like a save point. And in case you forgot what channel you're on, alright, let's talk about it. So, the 104 building has been updated to now reflect its real-life logo design rather than the pre-2019 one used up until this point. But why did the change take this long? Despite the building's logo being updated in 2019, Kingdom Hearts has stuck pretty firm to using the old logo. They used it in last year's screenshots, the first Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer, Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind, and the Kingdom Hearts 3 secret ending. Even way back when Kingdom Hearts 3 released, while the building was still rocking that old logo, the new one had already been announced for like nearly a year. They totally had time to preemptively make the swap back in 2019 before we saw this building for the first time. Why change it to the new logo now? And not just always start with the new logo. If back in Kingdom Hearts 3, Nomura knew that he wanted this building to show up again in the next game, you'd think that he'd be forward-thinking enough to use the most up-to-date logo from the get-go. Or hey, maybe there wasn't actually enough time back then to update the logo in that pre-rendered cutscene. What can you do? Deadlines, you know, we gotta ship out the game, the logo's gonna be out of date, but who cares? But if that was the case, why would you not then update the logo when you debut Kingdom Hearts 4 for the first time several years later? I mean, obviously that makes the story a little bit weird in Kingdom Hearts, can you imagine? Like, I guess the mall decided to update their logo in record time in the 7 days between KH3 and KH4. Or maybe we as an audience are just supposed to forget that the logo didn't always look like this before, even though they made such a big deal of showing off the old logo multiple times at the end of the last game. Yeah, no, that doesn't sound right either. The logo had to have intentionally been made to look like this in Kingdom Hearts 3, even when that look was already out of date. As far as I can tell, the initial decision to use the classic logo back then was a conscious choice. So the question is, why use the classic logo in the first place instead of the new one? Well, I had always assumed that it was a reference to The World Ends With You. And that's not my bias talking, see my first video for reference. Using Shibuya 104 is strictly a World Ends With You reference. Even Square's other game about their more fantasy-like characters getting flung into modern-day Shibuya uses the numbers 109 like in real life. Because fun fact, Square has had the license to do that since the start of the decade. They could make it look like it does in real life, but no, they chose to make it look like it does in The World Ends With You. And this isn't like a cute nod or Easter egg either. It is a main focus of the game's secret ending, the video dedicated to showing what the future of the franchise will look like. I had always figured that using specifically the Shibuya 104 logo, specifically as it looked in the original World Ends With You game, was a nod to that game's cast having a presence in this upcoming story, likely to a small capacity. I know better than to think wishful for this franchise. But now I'm not so sure, because changing it now when it could have been changed so many times before doesn't feel like an update to be current with real-life Japan. It feels closer to a narrative pivot. They've changed it to no longer look like it does in The World Ends With You. And yeah, I know that's how the building does actually look in the game's sequel and anime adaptation, but those were all well in development when Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. When developing Kingdom Hearts 3, Nomura likely already knew how the building was gonna look in the World Ends With You series moving forward. If he wanted this building to be a reference to current World Ends With You, then it would have just started out with the new logo or get updated to the new logo literally any time before now. Instead, this whole time it remained a reference to classic World Ends With You, which already has a presence in the Kingdom Hearts universe. Up until right now, where it is suddenly not a reference to classic World Ends With You. There is an optimistic read here that they have pivoted to a Neo The World Ends With You reference rather than a classic World Ends With You reference, but there is also a pessimistic read here that they're pivoting away from referencing The World Ends With You at all. But throw all that out the window because what is all this about? Hello? Okay, so this ad isn't like that new. It could be seen in Kingdom Hearts 3 by simply going out of bounds, just like most of the other ads that we see here. It has been updated to make its text illegible, but The truth is that back in Kingdom Hearts 3, that said Crescent Next, and no amount of vagifying will change the fact that it's an ad for a dude with a Neku Sakuraba-esque fashion and a World Ends With You-esque art style right smack dang in the middle of the World Ends With You building. So, scratch my overanalysis of the logo. Yeah, they made it slightly less of a World Ends With You reference while also making it way more of a World Ends With You reference. Like, it was a little doubtable before that Crescent Next was supposed to be Neku, but those doubts are practically gone now. That's a big ol' World Ends With You reference right there, front and center in the starting world of Kingdom Hearts 4. Minamimoto Secret Boss, come to me! More on the logo itself, this version contains the full name of the building, that being Shibuya 104. Like I've said before, the city has been referred to as both Shibuya and Quadratum. And in case we're not sure that the city depicted in the trailer is the same as the one here, don't you worry. Even here in Kingdom Hearts 4, a few of the signs around town do still translate to Shibuya. They're written in various made-up languages, but they do say Shibuya, just trust. Although we maybe weren't meant to translate all of these, as some of them also do just straight up say Lorem Ipsum Dolorcit. If you want to keep up to date with translations and stuff, I highly recommend checking out @BreezyFeather's Twitter or their YouTube channel as linked below. They've also identified some brand new languages in this trailer. I spent some time trying to translate them myself and was so overjoyed to find that someone more knowledgeable did it for me. Now to circle back to the subject of the city being called Shibuya and Quadratum, it's actually probably more likely that the world is called Quadratum and that the city is called Shibuya. Or actually even more likely, the real-life city of Tokyo is called Quadratum here, and it contains the ward called Shibuya, just like it does in real life. I mean, we already know that Shinjuku is also part of this world, and that is very much a different ward than Shibuya. Back on the subject of the 104 building's logo, the command menu was also updated to use the new 104 logo, but also has the Docomo Tower added, which you may recognize from Kingdom Hearts 3's box art. I wonder if it will still have the 13 out of order hours and such. We also have two other interesting ads in this sequence. There's a Star Travel ad, which I don't think we've seen before. Makes me wonder if this has anything to do with how we get to other worlds in this game, or maybe not. Most of the ads here do appear to be a whole lot of nonsense, in fairness. Of course, not you, my precious prince. But I will hyper-focus on this ad, which, while appearing as far back as Kingdom Hearts 3, is now animated and has legible text. This is an ad for the Wonderful Amusement Group and has the tagline, "Free Your Imagination." And of course, I have to point out the words wonderful and imagination are notable keywords in the World Ends With You franchise. Might be nothing, but this group here does seem to have more ads than the rest peppered around the town, so I thought I'd point it out. Lastly, for the environment, where is the Hachiko statue? It's just straight up missing from this version of Shibuya. Very odd, since it's a relatively important location in The World Ends With You, and otherwise just an iconic landmark for the city. Even Raynad has included it, albeit while changing it to a crow. Hachiko. After that, the trailer shows us more footage of the Darkseid fight. Since we last checked in, Darkseid has destroyed the remaining windows in this walkway. In the background, there's this glowy thing. Not sure what it is. I feel like I'm pointing out a UFO sighting because it might just be some funny lights, but there you go. The fight itself does seem to be very environmentally based, with Sora getting thrown into buildings and such. And this battle really does seem to be a national threat, judging by all of the destruction in the background. The point I'm trying to make is that stuff like this might be helping Sora and Strel afford that apartment because the Shibuya real estate market has to be crashing after this. During this, we see the one base combo Sora performs in this whole dang trailer as he cuts through these tendrils to hit Darkseid's hands. Oh hey, look at that aerial lag. I'm sure people are very normal about that. This is the BlackJupiter special. I'll spend like 5 minutes straight talking about the 104 building, but I got no skin in that game. We do see a new guard that puts a whole barrier around Sora, which, since this is a tutorial, or at least a very early game fight, that means this is his base guard. A little strange, but okay. Also, Dodge Roll is here. Everyone say hi, Dodge Roll. And that is the whole trailer. But there is still one big lingering question.
there is one big lingering question that I'm going to talk about right now. When do we get game?
Well, I think it's worth noting that the trailer didn't show us any new worlds at all and only shows encounters and environments likely from the game's opening hours, which would ordinarily worry me somewhat. I've previously reported that I had a feeling Kingdom Hearts 4 was pretty well along in development and that they were holding out stuff deliberately, but to keep that up over a year later suggests otherwise. But by looking closely, we can determine that unlike the first trailer, we are looking at real gameplay being played on real hardware. We can even see graphical differences between the versions of the trailer, with the Switch 2 versions of the trailer sporting blurrier textures. So basically, the game's in a real playable state to some degree. It's hard to know what that means for release, but D23 is only a couple months out. I'd expect a big news blowout then. If not, frick. We might then be going back into a little bit of a dark age because seriously, can we not get at least one explicit confirmation of a Disney World? Like really, what is taking this game so long? Based on the footage we've seen, a lot of Sora's animations are reused from Kingdom Hearts 3 and a lot of Quadratum's assets were built way back for Remind. And that's not a knock, I love it when a game reuses assets to get the next installment out in a timely manner. But this hasn't been a timely manner, so what gives? Where is the development time being sunk into? I'm very curious to find out. And that's all of that. Sorry I haven't been around much. I am trying to graduate this summer and that's eating up most of my attention, along with other projects like being the marketing producer on a feature film, which is just, oh my gosh. But if I'm not gonna flunk out of my final semester, I need some rest. Before I put on some white noise and head to Dreamland, I want you to point out to me anything that you believe I missed in this trailer. Oh, and also huge thanks to our patrons for continuing to stick with us. That's Bacon Insert Noun, Kaiser, Willpower 784, Wonderland Snack, The Missing Samurai, Venforia, and Blake Jekyll. Radio, see you again, hopefully soon.